39 days to France versus Senegal. The captain's hamstring is completely unconfirmed. And, well, the internet is in full 100% verified panic mode.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you have the planet's most watched footballer just limping off the pitch. And it was his 100th appearance for Real Madrid, too.
Right. A centenary gift from the universe. No cake, just an ice pack. Welcome to the deep dive, everyone.
Yeah, the global reaction was immediate doom. Social media has essentially already ruled Kylian Mbappé out of the 2026 World Cup.
Which is exactly why we're here today. Our mission is to figure out if that internet hysteria is actually true or if we're all just, overreacting.
And we are not just guessing here. We've got a massive stack of verified sources for this deep dive. We're talking official medical statements, club briefings, French Football Federation timelines, the works.
Exactly. So whether you're a diehard football fan who tracks injury updates like a day trader or just someone who loves the drama of a global sporting crisis, you are in the right place.
We are going to separate the social media hysteria from the cold, hard medical reality today.
We're going to give you the exact facts you need to sound like the smartest person in the room. So let's unpack this. We need to start with the anatomy of the panic. Let's go back to April 25th.
Right. The scene of the crime, so to speak. It's the 81st minute in Madrid. Real Madrid is tied 1-1 with Real Betis.
And like you mentioned, this is a massive milestone game for him, his 100th appearance.
Yeah.
And then what actually happens?
Well, out of nowhere, he just signals to the bench there wasn't some massive tackle, no traumatic collision. He just asked to be subbed off because of discomfort in his left leg.
The non-contact injuries are always the most terrifying. When two players collide, you understand the physics of it. But just pulling up while running, that means the structural integrity just failed.
Oh, for sure. Non-contact soft tissue stuff is the absolute nightmare scenario for any medical staff. And the post-match press conference didn't help calm anyone down either.
Right, because Alvaro Arbeloa had just taken over as the Madrid manager, right? What did he say?
Yeah, he stepped up to the microphone and basically admitted he was totally in the dark. He just said, I have no idea. We'll see how he evolves.
Which is just prime fuel for internet panic. So for 2 days, the whole world is just hanging on that vague word, discomfort.
Exactly. But then on April 27th, Real Madrid finally drops the official medical statement, and they confirm it's a semitendinosus muscle injury.
Okay, wait. Semitendinosis. Let's break that down for the listener, because the hamstring isn't just one big block of muscle, is it?
No, it's actually a complex group of 3 different muscles. You've got the biceps femoris, the semimembranosus, and the semitendinosus.
And for a player like Mbappé, whose entire game is built on just explosive speed, that specific muscle is incredibly important, right?
Oh, it's crucial. The semitendinosus is essentially his biomechanical braking system. When he's sprinting at top speed and needs to suddenly hit the brakes to change direction.
Which is like his signature move.
Right, exactly. When he does that, that muscle absorbs a staggering amount of kinetic energy. So if there's a failure there, he basically loses his superpower.
But here's the catch with that April 27th statement. They gave us the Latin name of the muscle, but they gave zero timeline for his recovery.
Yeah, that omission was deafening. They didn't assign a grade to the injury at all, which is exactly what created this massive breeding ground for the current panic.
Because the grade changes everything, doesn't it? Like, what are the different grades we're talking about here?
Well, it's a spectrum. A grade 1 is basically a minor strain. You're looking at microscopic tearing, but the structure is mostly intact. That usually takes about 1 to 2 weeks to heal.
Okay, so if it's a grade 1, he takes a couple weeks off, maybe does some light pool work, and he's totally fine for a World Cup that's 39 days away.
Yeah, exactly. But a grade 3 is a whole different universe. That's a full or near complete tear. Sometimes the muscle even detaches from the tendon.
Oh, wow. That sounds awful.
It is. And that process takes anywhere from 6 to 12 weeks, sometimes more. Plus, it occasionally requires surgery. So by not giving a grade, Madrid essentially trapped everyone in diagnostic purgatory.
It's crazy. And we really have to look at this new injury in the context of what his body has already been through this season. Because the miles on the odometer are really starting to show.
Oh, the 2025-2026 season has been an absolute physical gauntlet for him. If you look back at October and November of 2025, he had this recurring right ankle inflammation.
Right, and he even missed a World Cup qualifier against Iceland because of it.
Exactly. And then in November, that same right ankle flared up again right after he secured France's qualification.
I remember that. He scored that cheeky Panenka against Ukraine, and then the next day his ankle is swollen shut. So does his track record of healing quickly give us any hope here?
Well, it's complicated. Because after the ankle, he had a really frustrating knee issue between February and March of 2026. He actually said it caused him frustration, anger, and anxiety.
Man, he was really vocal about the mental toll of that one. But wait, the ankle and the knee issues were both on his right leg, right?
Yes, exactly. But this new hamstring tear is on his left leg. It's completely new trauma.
Okay, so it's not just the same joint failing over and over. But doesn't that mean he was probably overcompensating?
That is highly probable. When you spend months protecting a right knee, you subconsciously shift your explosive load onto your left leg, so that left leg just absorbs way too much stress.
And eventually it just reaches its breaking point. Which brings up the recurrence risk. I like to think of an elite athlete's hamstring like a high-tension rubber band.
That's a great analogy, actually.
Yeah, because if you stretch that rubber band back to full capacity before the micro tears actually heal, it doesn't just hurt a little bit, it completely snaps.
That is the exact biomechanical reality. Hamstrings are notoriously unforgiving. If you rush a grade 1 strain, it almost invariably turns into a catastrophic grade 3 rupture.
Which perfectly transitions us into the whole corporate side of this mess.
Yeah.
Because now we have to talk about the people who actually control his recovery right now.
Right, the billion-dollar tug of war between Real Madrid and the French national team. It is a fascinating dynamic.
It really is.
Yeah.
Real Madrid pays his wages. Their doctors are the ones holding the ice packs. But France needs to borrow him for a massive global tournament. Why might Madrid's silence actually be a tactical move?
To understand that, you have to look at the La Liga standings. Right now, Real Madrid is mathematically eliminated from the title race. They are 11 points behind Barcelona.
So their season is basically over. Every domestic game they have left is just a meaningless exhibition.
Exactly. Plus, their medical room is already a disaster zone. Arda Güler and Eder Militão were literally just ruled out for the rest of the season.
Oh, wow. So the squad is just totally depleted.
Yeah, so think about it from Madrid's perspective. They have absolutely zero incentive to inject Mbappé with painkillers and rush him onto the pitch for a meaningless game.
Right. It's like letting a friend borrow your incredibly rare, super expensive sports car for a cross-country trip when the check engine light is already flashing. At what point does the club just say no?
Well, Spanish media is actually reporting that Madrid has already said no. The insiders are saying he won't play for his club again until next year. They are entirely shutting him down.
Okay, but wait. On the surface, that sounds like a nightmare for France. Hearing he shut down sounds like his leg is falling off. But ironically, this is actually fantastic news for the national team, isn't it?
It's the ultimate paradox. A fit 28-year-old Mbappé next season is worth billions to Madrid. Protecting him is their only priority, so they won't rush him.
Which means he gets pure, uninterrupted rest. He gets the exact natural healing timeline that France desperately needs him to have.
Exactly. Both the French Football Federation and Real Madrid claim they are collaboratively monitoring the situation. But legally, the timeline mechanics give France a lot of breathing room.
Let's talk about those timelines. Didier Deschamps actually delayed his 55-man preliminary list to May 14th, right?
Yes, and the final 26-man roster isn't even due to FIFA until June 1st.
So they have weeks before they even have to put a final name on a piece of paper. But even then, there's a medical loophole, isn't there?
There is. FIFA rules allow a team to replace an injured player on that final roster up until 24 hours before their very first match.
Wait, really? So they don't actually have to make a final do-or-die decision until mid-June?
Exactly. They can just put him in the national team camp, assess him day by day, and make the call right before they play.
That is wild. So that brings us to the next huge point. We've established this really tight recovery window. But why does the pressure specifically hinge on him playing that very first match on June 16th?
Well, that is entirely because of the opponent. France opens their 2026 World Cup against Senegal.
At MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. And for anyone who knows their football history, that matchup carries a massive amount of baggage.
It really does. It is a direct rematch of the legendary 2002 World Cup opener. Senegal, who was making their debut, shocked France, the reigning champions, 1-0.
Right, Papa Bouba Diop scored that iconic goal. But come on, let me push back a little here. Does a match played 24 years ago really matter to a 27-year-old Mbappé?
To Mbappé himself? Maybe not. But it matters immensely to the French press, the fans, and especially the manager, Didier Deschamps.
I mean, I guess half the current squad was basically in diapers when that game happened.
Yep.
But you're saying the media narrative is the real problem.
Exactly. That 2002 loss is a generational trauma for French football. facing Senegal again to open a World Cup without your talisman captain. That's a nightmare scenario for the press.
So it creates this massive pressure cooker environment. The media will be screaming that they need to start strong to avoid the Senegal curse, which could force the medical staff to rush his return.
That is the exact fear. Because if you look at the rest of Group I, the opening game isn't even the biggest tactical hurdle.
Right, they have Iraq, who are in their first World Cup in 40 years, and I've actually never played France before. But then they also have Norway.
And Norway means Erling Haaland. Analysts universally agree that the Norway game on June 26th in Foxborough is the one that will actually decide the group.
So isn't Haaland the real threat waiting in Game 3? If you rush Mbappé back for the emotional closure against Senegal and his hamstring snaps, you don't have him for the final boss.
It's a huge tactical risk. And what makes that risk even more agonizing is the fact that an injury right now robs Mbappé of these historic personal milestones that are just dangling right in front of him.
The milestone watch is honestly staggering. He is sitting right now at 56 international goals, and the all-time France record is 57, held by Olivier Giroud.
He is literally 1 goal away from tying it and 2 goals away from becoming the undisputed greatest goal scorer in his country's history.
And it gets crazier on the World Cup stage. He has 12 career World Cup goals. Miroslav Klose holds the all-time record at 16. He just needs 4 to tie.
And to understand how achievable 4 goals is for him, you just have to look at his club consistency this year. Before the injury, he had 41 goals in 41 games for Madrid.
So he is basically a metronome. 1 goal per game, like clockwork. Breaking Giroud's record is practically guaranteed the second he steps on the pitch.
Oh, absolutely. And Giroud actually had this hilarious, totally relatable quote about it recently.
Yeah, what did he say?
He said, quote, "Honestly, it will be a huge source of pride, as long as he doesn't catch up to me too quickly."
That is so good. Just a veteran watching his legacy slowly evaporate. But there's an even deeper psychological factor here beyond just the goal records. We have to talk about Messi.
The Messi factor is huge. Remember, Mbappé won the World Cup in 2018 as a teenager. Then in 2022, he scores a hat-trick in the final, plays the game of his life, and still loses to Messi.
Yeah, he was completely devastated. He actually went on the record and said he'll, quote, never get over it.
Right. And Messi is back for 2026. This was supposed to be Mbappe's undisputed tournament, his massive redemption arc in his physical prime.
The cruelty of the timing is just unbelievable. I mean, he hits 400 career goals, younger than anyone since Pele. He plays his 100th game for Madrid. He's 1 goal away from his country's ultimate record.
Everything was perfectly aligned.
And then the universe just hands him a hamstring tear. It's literally like getting to the final boss of a video game and your controller just unplugs.
It really is a sporting tragedy. But that brings us to the biggest tactical question of the tournament.
Here's where it gets really interesting. If the worst happens and he's limited to being a bench sub, or he misses the tournament completely, does France's World Cup dream actually die?
The casual fan would say yes, but when you look at the actual depth of this French squad, they are arguably the best in the entire tournament.
Let's look at the evidence. Just in March of 2026, they played friendlies against 2 massive South American teams. They beat Brazil 2-1, and they beat Colombia 3-1.
And the Colombia game is the key data point there, because Deschamps heavily rotated the squad for that match. They essentially dismantled Colombia with their B team.
So who are the key players ready to step up if Mbappé can't go?
Well, first and foremost, you have Ousmane Dembele. And we have to remember, Dembele is the reigning 2025 Ballon d'Or winner.
Wait, really? So their backup plan is literally the officially recognized best player in the world?
Exactly. It's an embarrassment of riches. And beyond him, you have Michael Olise from Bayern Munich, who is just electric right now.
And the midfield is totally locked down, too, with N'Golo Kanté returning. Plus, William Saliba anchoring the defense. Though we should mention they did lose 1 piece of depth recently.
Yeah, Hugo Ekitike from Liverpool is confirmed out with a ruptured Achilles, which is a tough loss for their attacking options. But still, the core is incredibly strong.
So let me push back on the doom and gloom for a second. If you have the Ballon d'Or winner, Olise, Kanté, and Saliba, isn't calling this an injury crisis a bit dramatic? Most nations would absolutely kill for France's Plan B.
It's true. Their Plan B is phenomenal. And it actually sparks this really hot take among tactical analysts right now. Some argue France might actually be better as a cohesive unit without Mbappé.
Right, like the Ewing theory. The idea that without the superstar demanding the ball constantly, the pressure is off, and the team plays more fluid, unpredictable football.
Exactly. But you have to understand the difference between having a high floor and a high ceiling.
Okay, Break that down for me. What does that mean in a tournament context?
France's incredible depth gives them a very high floor, meaning their baseline level without Mbappé is still good enough to beat teams like Colombia and easily advance through the group stage.
But a high floor doesn't win you a World Cup final against an elite locked-in defense.
Right. To win the whole thing, you need a high ceiling. You need that singular, terrifying player who can just break a game wide open in the 88th minute. Without Mbappé at full throttle, analysts say the team can actually become a bit passive.
Wow. So they can survive without him. But maybe they can't conquer without him. Which leads us to a much wider context. Mbappe's hamstring isn't happening in a vacuum.
Not at all. It actually points to a massive tournament-defining trend happening across the entire sport right now.
We compile this list of pre-tournament casualties, and the 2026 injury pandemic is just staggering. Let's run through some of these names.
You got Spain's Lamine Yamal out with a hamstring, Brazil's Estevão Willian with a grade 4 hamstring tear, Mo Salah with a hamstring issue.
And it's not just hamstrings, right? Luka Modric has a cheekbone issue, Christian Romero has a partial MCL tear, and Achraf Hakimi is also dealing with a hamstring.
Yeah, the vast majority of these are soft tissue injuries, specifically hamstrings, and they are all happening right in this 4 to 6 week window before the tournament.
When you tune into a World Cup, you expect to see the Avengers assembling on the pitch. But right now it feels like half the cast is in the hospital. Are we turning this tournament into a literal war of attrition?
That's exactly what it is, and you have to ask why. The modern football calendar is literally breaking the world's best players.
Because of the expanded club formats and now the expanded World Cup.
Yes, the cumulative physical toll is just unsustainable. They play too many high-intensity games, and by late April, the muscle fibers just reach their breaking point. The elasticity is gone.
That is a terrifying reality for the sport. And all of this pressure, this war of attrition, is falling squarely on the shoulders of the managers. Which brings us back to Didier Deschamps.
Right, the manager's burden. And for Deschamps, the emotional layer here is massive because this is officially his last dance.
He's leaving after the 2026 tournament, right?
Yes. He's chasing ultimate history. Only 3 men have ever won the World Cup as both a player and a manager. If he wins this one, he cements a legacy that is basically untouchable.
So his entire legacy hinges on navigating this specific injury crisis over the next month. And you can really see the stress getting to him, especially with some of the bizarre logistics lately.
Oh, his behavior has been incredibly telling. Take the squad announcement delay, for example. He pushed the announcement back to May 14th purely so he could watch a rescheduled domestic match.
Wait, a domestic match? Between
Paris Saint-Germain and RC Lens.
You're kidding. He delayed the National World Cup squad announcement to watch a random late-season PSG versus Lens game.
He did. It shows how meticulously he's agonizing over the absolute fringes of his roster. Because, as his assistant Guy Steffen publicly stated, quote, "I do not think a player who has never been selected will be going."
So the core group is totally locked in. He's just desperately trying to figure out which backups can actually survive the physical toll of this tournament.
Exactly. And the stress is making him complain about the most ridiculous things, like the Foxborough traffic.
Oh my God, that was hilarious. He literally went on the record complaining about U.S. security lines and the traffic getting to Foxborough.
Right, the exact stadium where he actually has to coach that crucial game against Norway.
Complaining about traffic to the stadium where you're managing a World Cup match is just so funny.
Yeah.
But seriously, it raises a really cynical question. If the manager knows this is his absolute last dance, does that make him more likely to risk playing Mbappé injured? I mean, he won't be around to deal with the long-term fallout if the hamstring fully ruptures. Real Madrid will.
It's a dark thought, but it's the classic club versus country dilemma. However, Deschamps is historically very pragmatic. He knows a 60% Mbappé who limps off after 10 minutes hurts his chances of winning more than just resting him.
That makes sense. Okay, we've covered so much ground today. Let's do a rapid-fire recap of the actual facts so the listener can take this all to the bank.
Sounds good. First, Mbappé is genuinely injured with a Semiendinosis tear, but he is definitively not ruled out of the World Cup.
Right. Second, Real Madrid shutting him down is actually a massive blessing for France because it guarantees he gets the natural rest he needs without being rushed for meaningless club games.
Third, he has those historic records dangling just out of reach, Giroud's national record and Klose World Cup record, plus the massive psychological weight of the Messi redemption arc.
Fourth, he's racing the clock against the ghosts of 2002 because that opening game against Senegal is going to be an absolute media pressure cooker.
And finally, this is all happening during a massive sport-wide injury pandemic that is breaking players down at an unprecedented rate.
So when the tournament finally kicks off, you now know the real stakes. Every sprint Mbappé makes isn't just a run. It's a structural test of a recently torn hamstring.
You'll be watching the biomechanics and the medical strategy just as much as the tactics on the pitch.
So what does this all mean for the future? We spent 4 years obsessing over tactics, but the reality seems much darker now.
It really does. Ask yourself this. As the game gets relentlessly faster and the calendar gets more and more crowded, will future World Cups actually be won by the nation with the most breathtaking talent?
Or will they simply be won by the nation with the best medical staff? That is a fascinating thought to mull over. Thank you all for joining us on this deep dive. We will see you on the next one.